Thanks for joining us on the Activate and Illuminate podcast with Mel. I'm your host, Mel, and together we are going to be hearing some stories of ordinary people doing a little bit of extraordinary things. Now, whether they've pushed their bodies to extremes, whether they've had personal challenges that they've overcome, you're going to want to hear their stories. So I will say, stay tuned to the end. That's where we ask some of the juiciest questions. And I would also invite you to like, share, and subscribe to anywhere that you listen to your podcasts. I would also invite you to join up for our newsletter on activateandilluminate.com. Thanks for listening, guys. Thanks for joining us today. I appreciate you being here. And today you're going to listen to my conversation with Nicole Murphy. Now, she's a media professional. She has a podcast called Super Scene. She's interviewed a lot of amazing people. She is a consummate creator and collaborator. She has a business with a business partner as well. We talk about some of her projects, some of her future collaborations. We talk about some of her fears, her big audacious dream. And essentially her life in media and her life in education in teaching media, and perhaps maybe some of our misperceptions or realities about essentially what media is. And we talk about social media, secondary education, we talk about so many different things, but you're going to want to listen to Nicole. And there is some great little bonus content at the end if you subscribe to our newsletter on activateandilluminate.com. Well, hello, everyone, and thanks for being here. I'm grateful that you're listening today. We have a lovely lady, Nicole Murphy. Now, we are going to get into the nitty-gritty of a few different topics today with Nicole. But I would just love, now I'll give you a tiny little bit of a background here on Nicole. She is a media professional. She has developed with her partner a company called Super Scene. She has been in the educational industry teaching media and teaching courses at the college level. And she is a consummate creator and collaborator. That's what she loves to do. And that is how we connected. And so I would love, Nicole, for you to share just, some of what you're passionate about. But first of all, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Melanie. I'm excited about this. I think that you've got some really great curiosity going and a big heart to serve entrepreneurs and people who want to create lives that are full of passion and fulfillment. So thank you for what you're doing. I'm passionate about very similar things. I think that's why we were mutually connected. And I have a background in media. I've been in media for over a decade. I went to school for radio, television. Not surprising, it's because I love story. I love people's stories. I love hearing the hero's journey. I love interacting and building with people. And so while going to school for media and creating a career in media, working on movies and morning news at one point and working with students at a college level, this whole time, and even long before this, I've been fascinated with human psychology, self-development, and what creates, maybe a better way to put it is, how can we tap into more human, creative, and innovative potential? I went to an art school, so I've always been so passionate about creativity. In fact, my background is in dance. I taught dance for years, and going to radio television school was not something I had planned in any capacity. I thought I would be a nanny, working with kids, teaching dance, working at restaurants. I knew there was something else, but I didn't know it was going to be media. And then it hit me that I was like, ooh, actually, this is an interesting story. I sat on the couch one day, I was 23, and I said, God, what do you want me to do? And I heard, you might enjoy making documentaries. And that's really how my media career started.
I just got goosebumps as you said that, Nicole.
Yeah.
So tell us about your favorite documentary project that you've ever been involved with.
Oh, that's fun. So I was really lucky to come out of school and work for a company that was hired by TELUS to do a lot of community television, a lot of segments on food, on fun things for families to do, on interesting people in the community. So I did a ton of segments. You know those little 3 to 5 minute stories that are, this person's super cool and this is why. I did a ton of those. I loved it. However, I was really, really grateful to get a big grant myself. And I had a couple business partners at the time, collaborators, to produce a documentary on female athletes. And so I did a web series on female athletes. We had the only Indian speed skater. We had a sitting volleyball player, a girl who lost her leg in a boating accident. We had twin rock climbers and a Métis boxer. And so it was really fun to do this web series with my friends and collaborate and create this web series. So I've had a lot of amazing projects to do. I've never done like a feature investigative documentary. I've done a lot of articles more like that, but the heroic web series was probably my favorite project to work on.
Okay. So tell us, now I know that, maybe share a little bit of your journey the last few years and what's transpired and, kind of the climactic point in your career that was a big shift for you.
Yeah, it's funny because I just told you about this documentary I did about female athletes and showcasing diverse voices and giving these unique stories. I learned in media school the importance of finding the story that's not being told and to tell it. And I think that is so key to really good media. Well, during the pandemic, I was finding stories of people with vaccine injury. I was looking into these other sides, these other narratives that weren't being featured in mainstream media. And I got really curious about what was taking place. So I was speaking out about it and talking about it. And very professionally, I had a student team, a media student team at the college who were running the school newspaper. And I was always encouraging them to find the other sides, to share their point of view. So I was never placing my beliefs on them, but I was speaking out and using my social media as a platform. And I was let go from teaching the school newspaper or running the school newspaper because of, they said something like I was fired without cause because of like a misalignment of value, something like that. And then a couple months later, I was fired from teaching an actual course in the program that I went to, radio and television, for not being vaccinated. Yeah. Yeah. And it was my media training. This is the ironic part. It was my media training that really was why I was able to navigate that landscape and learn different points of views and to see what was going on. I was speaking out about a week before it was mainstream. I was saying on my social media, hey, I don't think that these vaccines are going to stop transmission. From the research I've been doing and the medical papers I've been reading and different points of views I've heard, what I think is that it's more dependent on a person's viral load. It's more dependent on their physical health, whether or not they're going to transmit the COVID. And I was called dangerous for that. And then, of course, a week later, it becomes mainstream and people seem to forget, no, we weren't told the vaccines are going to stop COVID. We were told they would just make it not. So there was a lot of things that happened like that where I was talking about something with my media training very professionally and called dangerous. And then it was mainstream not too long after. Or now more recently, other things coming to the surface that I've been talking about for a while.
How did that experience being, let's call it marginalized, how did that experience being marginalized affect your viewpoint of the industry?
Good question. I had an opportunity when I was in school to work on a CTV morning live in Edmonton. And even then, that was 10 years ago, I was starting to see the breakdown of quality media. I really love the movie Spotlight, which follows 5 journalists who broke the story on priests molesting children in the Boston area. And that Spotlight team was 5 people working on one story for months and months. I think it was even a year. That didn't exist when I was in the newsroom. So I already saw that quality investigative journalism was breaking down while I was in school. And I saw issues already. So it didn't really change my point of view around media that much. It did. There was obviously pain and hurt around my colleagues, some of them taking me off social media or not talking to me being fired by people who had taught me in school or my mentors of mine. However, I understood what was happening, so I didn't take it too personally. I understood the psychological propaganda and and bigger picture taking place. So I didn't take it too personally. It didn't change my view so much as solidify what I had been seeing happening earlier on in my career.
So when you go back in your mind, could you see stepping stones or different things being laid out to prepare the industry for this?
Yeah, 100%. I went to big journalism conferences with my students, and there were courses and workshops and things taking place. And I remember this one workshop was essentially how to combat against anti-vaxxers. And this was before COVID. So what I saw happening in these journalism conferences is there wasn't real diversity in opinion and debate taking place on issues. There was what would it be called? Like an arrogance taking place where it was just like, this is obviously the truth. And there was a programming taking place. I already saw that there wasn't that much diversity in the students there. There wasn't diversity in thought. There was diversity in appearance taking place, but there wasn't diversity in thought and true debate taking place in these journalism conferences. Also in media, the industry has been falling apart in a lot of ways. So when there wasn't these spotlight teams, there wasn't investigative reporting happening. I remember this one time, one of my jobs was for my producer to send me news packages, news stories, and then I would say if they were good to go to air. Well, CTV was affiliated with ABC. They probably still are. So we were getting news packages from the United States to put out on our Canadian television. And no journalist was, like, my job was to check it in 10 minutes and then decide if it was good to go out. That's not really investigating what's taking place, right? So there's been ways to save money in radio and television, and there's been a lot of people leaving radio and television or being fired, and just a bare bones situation happening. And the people who stick around are the ones who have had success. And to have success in that industry, I think you need to lean into, this is kind of maybe a bit controversial. If you're being inundated with bad stories all the time and you're seeking to get views and clicks and to have that breaking story, you're putting yourself in almost a survival mode all the time. It's hard to see clearly. And so what I witnessed, I think the first day I was at CTV Morning Live, I think there was a tragic accident and somebody was like, oh yes, this will be our lead story today. Now I have empathy for that media professional. Yeah, you're like, oh, okay, this is a breaking story. Yeah, we got it. But if you're constantly in that environment, I think it skews reality for people. So these were all hints to issues that would come in the media industry. Also in school, you're told that you have to listen and do what you're told and make sure, because there's not very many jobs. And if you do anything wrong, you can be fired and replaced like that. So if you have sorry?
You're told that.
Yeah, like it's prevalent. Now, it's done from the idea of do your job well, show up on time, be reliable. But very quickly, I mean, my media students saw I got fired for questioning the narrative. What do you think what that does to them? It implants this idea that if you question things, you're not going to have a job. You're going to lose your livelihood. So you have, in my opinion, the majority of people in mainstream media, some of them were my friends, some of them I taught, some of them were my colleagues. You have people who are very tuned into self-preservation above truth and curiosity. And that is not a formula for good journalism. If you have people who don't know how to critically think, but think they do, you have people who are tuned into self-preservation and above all else, dog eat dog for the jobs, and you have media being mass produced. That's like fast food. You wouldn't say McDonald's has great food. So why we think CTV has great news is beyond me. And I'm picking on CTV because I worked there, but Global or Shaw or CBC. Yeah.
Do you think the programming, I might be putting my own skew and stance on this by asking this question, but do you think there has been I'll use the word malignancy. Do you think there has been a malignancy in the media world as far as seeding ideas and seeding concepts and seeding public opinion?
This episode brought to you by bizbloomer.com. BizBloomer.com is your friend to small and local businesses, a platform and directory that provides exposure and support to small ma-and-pa type stores or local entrepreneurs, helping them make an impact in their own local communities. BizBloomer.com is taking the corporate out of business and helping small businesses become relevant and essential again. Businesses can get started for free. Search for BizBloomer businesses in your area. Check them out today. BizBloomer.com. That's BIZ Bloomer.com.
Like what you're asking is, was there a conscious effort for evil to, like, what's malignancy mean again? Like,
A malignancy would be like a tumor or like growth, like we'll call it. So, was it like a concerted effort to start something and have it grow, or was it more natural in cause and effect?
I think that there are a small group of people who have set media up in this way to control it, but the average person working in media has bought into the ideology. As I said, when you're when you're in school and you're taught there's not very many jobs left and you have to do what you're told, and those crazy anti-vaxxers, you're in a journalism conference and they're telling you, okay, we have to learn as journalists how to not listen to these crazy anti-vaxxers. That's seeding, but I think that it's the ends justifies the means. The majority of people really believe what they're doing. The majority of people think it's what's best for people. The majority of people really believe that vaccines save lives. But I would argue that the majority of people I've talked to who believe that have never looked into the other side. And then they're even taught, like, it wasn't just media professionals, but society is throwing at, don't do your own research. You're not smart enough to do your own research. And I've had media professionals say that to me. I said, that is my job as a journalist, is to do my own research, is to talk to different experts, is to learn how to read these reports and to get curious. That is the point of a journalist, is to be a person who's willing to stand up to the powers and the authorities and the narratives to to do the uncomfortable work to see what's true. So I would say that the industry, the people I know, believe what they're doing is right. But yeah. And it's ego. Like, which one of my past teachers wants to, think one of my students can critically think better than me? It's not even that. Who wants to think that they don't know how to critically think? Especially if their identity is built on being a good media professional, doing well in school, being intelligent. Yeah, it's tough.
It's interesting when you say the word critically think. I think of how, so just for reference, I'm 51. And, so I went to school a long time ago. But as my kids were going to school, I saw how some of our education and this idea of critical thinking has changed. And I see what, our education system is. And I would argue that some schools and some programs are doing it really, really well.
Yep.
And then there is I would call it more the basic public school system. And I know it changes district to district and all the rest of it. But I would say that I watched my children learn how to tailor their content in their writing for their teachers, because they knew that teacher's viewpoint, they know everything about these teachers nowadays. They know who their teachers are sleeping with. They know who they're like. It's crazy what some of the things that we never ever knew as students. We didn't know our students' political views or our teachers' political views. We didn't know their personal lives. We did not know these things. And so they would tailor this content. And we had open conversations about, how they got their marks. And they quickly learned, and I mean, this is a little bit before AI, but they quickly learned to tailor their production based around the ideologies of the teachers.
That is so
said,
cool.
like, we'll get better marks if we use the word socialism, or we'll get better marks if we use these certain things. And it was quite an interesting conversation. And when I realized that they told me after, that they had been doing this. And when I realized after that they had been doing this, I was like, oh, well, you know, interesting, first of all, that they tried to kind of biohack the system. But sad that we have to. Sad that particular viewpoint is, and that maybe what they really thought about something wasn't allowed to come out as content, or because they knew that it would not be seen as in a high enough mark, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what I feel like has happened a little bit with our entire education system, is that the bars have come down, the critical thinking has come down. We are teaching children to make it through the system, but to adopt ideologies that might not be theirs. And yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, what's interesting is students are picking up, it sounds like your kids are picking up on just how emotionally immature their instructors are, their teachers are. Because the point of a teacher is to support someone in their individuation and their ability to critically think and their excitement about learning, and not to tell them what to think, and it's to teach them how to think. So I just think about my students too. When I was doing the newspaper, I'd say all of them knew that I was Christian and believed in God. And we did taboo talks on Satanism because and they were able, I truly believe, I could be wrong, but I truly believe they felt encouraged to go seek interesting topics, things that I would maybe disagree with, or that was the point. That was the whole point. And yeah, that's just so fascinating to me that students are picking up on how to manipulate their teachers based on their teachers being emotionally immature and unable to read something and separate their beliefs from it and just see the creative practice taking place, or whatever it is, what that person thinks. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. So tell me, what's a big audacious dream of yours? Something that feels a little bit scary to put into words.
I want to have a big ass event that has headliners like, I was asking people the other day, someone like a J.K. Rowling or a Joe Rogan, where the event is about inspiring people to really step in and do what they creatively are called to do. That would be like a stadium event, or with thousands of people, where it's about getting people in their creativity again. I think that's what we're seeing a direct attack on. And even you telling your story about the school. We need to let people learn how to play with that creative energy, that collaboration, learn how to hone in on it, learn how to navigate if it's going off the rails, and to complete things. And there's this book called, what is it called? It's a play on the art of war. It's The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. And it just talks about how you're going to have the greatest resistance to the thing you're most meant to do. And when we're in this cancel culture type of divisive society, I think that a lot of creativity and innovation gets stifled because people are afraid to step up and be seen and try something new and take a risk because they're going to be called racist, or, shit on or canceled or lose their family. So that's what I'm passionate about, a big stadium style event to get people inspired to create.
That excites me. I think creativity has been stifled because the more creative you are, the more tapped into your intuition, and the more intuitive you are, that just leads to so many other problems. But I feel like I know myself, in the moments of creativity and creation is when I have allowed those feelings of intuition to bloom.
Yeah.
And yeah, what an exciting concept.
It's interesting you saying that, because creativity is, I believe, connected to spirituality. And that's what you're talking about, is your intuition. I also think that creativity can be hijacked, where people think, oh, this is my intuition, this is what I'm feeling for real. And then we get people who think that they're cats, or think that their imagination's being hijacked. So I do think it is a spiritual thing. And that's why the practice of creativity and being challenged in that creativity and collaborating with other people is so important. It's so important, so that you do hone in to that true north, your real intuition, not a reactive place. Because sometimes that's where people, I think, get confused. Your gut can tell you one thing, and intuition can be, they're two different things. One is like a survival mechanism, and one is, I think, God speaking to you, or whatever people want to say there. Like an intuition is that knowing. And I do agree, when you're in creative flow, your intuition can be guiding you for sure. Yeah. And you're practicing what that discernment is between intuition and survival response. That makes sense.
Did you see intuition being frowned upon in your environment that you were in, both school and media?
That's a good question. It wasn't talked about because we're talking about an industry that's very, I think, tries to get away from spirituality in some ways. Yeah, so it wasn't talked about. It wasn't like tapping into your intuition. Yeah, I don't know. That was not even a thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I have so many questions for you here, but
It's fine.
what would you say that time in media has taught you?
This is so interesting because I'm so, so grateful for my time at school taking radio and television. I always joke that is like my Hogwarts. I loved it so much. I love the people I went to school with. I loved my instructors. That's why I wanted to teach there. That's why I strategically, like very consciously, kept in touch, built relationships with, and ended up teaching media or running the school newspaper and then teaching in the program. I think media taught me how to listen to people, how to challenge myself with differing perspectives, how to get to the bottom of a good story, how to get people to open up and share their stories. Media has brought so much into my life, and I'm so grateful for it. And then it's also taught me how strong stories and narratives can be, and that propaganda is very real, and almost like a story hypnosis is very real. So, yeah, I've learned so much from media, my time in media.
Do you have fears about or I shouldn't maybe put my words into your mouth, but what would you say some of your fears are? Either be it for the education, be it for the media, or even just for yourself.
You know, it's so interesting. I quite early on was a fan of getting students curious about making their own podcasts, making their own content, using the internet. So I have a lot of hope for content. And if we really look at it, the most popular shows on the planet are like the Joe Rogan Experience. There's the alternative media space has exploded. Now, you'll see on both sides. My concern, this is my concern for media, is that people really lean into fear-driven narratives in order to get clicks, likes. They lean into to stroking someone's self-righteousness and pandering to their own audience, whichever side that's on, instead of being really concerned about connection and truth, nuance, and helping people think critically. I think media on both, quote unquote, both sides has played a role in the divisiveness taking place. And I think media can play a role in connecting people and being a bridge. So my concern is that no matter what, media, alternative or mainstream, that there's a condescending energy taking place in media. Like, ugh, those idiots on whatever side. And I mean, someone might listen to this interview and think I'm doing that at times, so I get it. Sometimes speaking truth is going to rub people, speaking your truth or whatever is going to rub people the wrong way, no matter how you present it. However, I would say an addiction to likes and sparking anger in people is the concern.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it, seeing how just our entire world has shifted. I mean, it used to be like, the only way you got your news, we'll call it news, was through the TV or through the radio. And now to have all these, some may disagree, but let's call it independent thinkers. And, to have all these independent thinkers out there just talking about whatever it is that excites them or that lights them up I'm sure there's, podcasts on tools and podcasts on something so specific, right? That it just, to have somebody be able to talk about something that excites them and have somebody else and maybe hear them, maybe not, listen to it and go, oh, wow, I got value from that. It's kind of an interesting concept.
It's amazing. I see more good with it than bad. To be fair, I haven't studied it, but you're taking away the gatekeepers and you're making it so that people can create business and make money by doing this. My business partner, Shauna, she's really focusing right now on serving makers, people who want to be at markets, because she has a jewelry business that she's had a lot of success with. And her podcast is Maker's Way. I think it's Maker's Way. And she's just doing podcasts to help makers learn how to do better at markets, learn how to have a better money mindset, learn how to make their display booth look better. And as you said, it's very niched. And like, how beautiful is that? Of course, with the mass amount of media and no gatekeepers, you get a lot of information. And so I think people are having information fatigue. But I think that that is just another call for an individual to get really clear about what's a distraction in their life and what's a signal. What is going to help them create and grow and collaborate, and what is just them numbing out and disassociating with content and in their safe little bubble.
Yeah. So you talked about your business partner.
Yes.
Let's go into that. So would you say that you have I see so many relationships as business partners, some really, really successful, and then some struggle. So how would you define your relationship, as a business partner, partnership? And and then we'll go from there.
So Shauna and I met because she applied to work at the school newspaper when I was running it. And so she was one of my students. Then she took graphic design, stepped into the role of designing the print paper. So we worked together mentoring students for a few years in media. So that's an important background. We started our journey working together, and we've had lots of speed bumps. We lived together right before the pandemic started, and so we were living together in the pandemic. Communication is key in all relationships. And the business partnerships that I see really struggling are struggling because of relational and communication issues. So Shauna, if anybody knows attachment theory, Shauna leans towards being more avoidant, more withdrawn. She grew up in a house that you just didn't talk about things. And I lean towards more anxious attachment style. I grew up in a house where we overly talked about things and made sometimes mountains out of molehills.
Yeah.
And there was its own flavor of trauma. So Shauna and I came together with these very different experiences in childhood, like people doing romantic relationships or any kind of friendship, and we had to navigate that communication. So in practicing that and growing in that way, we are really honest with each other. We have a couple books that 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership is one of the books that we often read through, and Traction is another business book. So we just align our values and have hard conversations as early as possible. And I think that in romantic partnerships, in friendships, in business partnerships, it's all similar. It's a inability to, how do I say it? Because I don't think people are doing it on purpose. These are skills that we didn't learn growing up. We didn't learn in school. So it's not on purpose, but it really boils down, I think, to communication and relationship skills.
Yeah. It's interesting. So as you talk about business and, doing a business with somebody and then, independently, I've had thoughts about just how business has changed over the last number of years. But I feel like the last 5 years that we've experienced is something that, likely in about, maybe people are already starting to do it. I already have a feeling of, oh my God, I can't believe that happened, or I can't believe that this was actually okay, that we justified doing some of these things in business that never would have been done before. I saw people turning away customers and being ungrateful for customers, and just this whole relationship between customer and business owner changed. It was this idea of like, oh no, you don't get to do this because you think that, and you don't get to be here because you think that. And just reflect on that for me, what you've seen with that, and just this idea of what you said about being grateful earlier. It made me think about this concept because I feel like we've been a little ungrateful for the gratefulness.
Yeah, I think what you're referencing is, certain signs in different people saying like, don't come in if you're this way. I think that customer service and connection have been, when this is actually a good segue, excuse me. When people don't know how to communicate and relate and have healthy relationship skills. And what ends up happening is we're in survival all the time, in self-preservation, or thinking another person based on their beliefs is a threat to us. Physiologically, almost impossible for somebody to go into that relational place. So if you're in survival, thinking, and I don't know the proper term, someone's going to attack me, but I've read a lot of books on it, okay? There's a book called Escaping Enemy Zone. When someone is in that enemy zone, survival, where everything's a threat, to be relational and to care about another person becomes very challenging. So what I think we've seen is propaganda and a movement to make divisiveness normalized and to justify the mistreatment of people. And then that does spill into their business. It inevitably will. I just interviewed a guy who was breaking down this study called the helping study, because I've even said this before that, progressives and conservatives that are extreme are the same side of the coin. They're mistreating each other. But they broke down this study that found progressives are more likely to mistreat conservatives than conservatives are to mistreat progressives when it comes to actually helping them out. So seeing signs like you can't come in here if you're, not vaxxed or conservative or things like that. I think that is part of the dangerous of the progressive left, is that they justify mistreatment to people morally. They think that these people are they think you and I are misogynistic, racist, and bad people. And once you put people in a bad people box, then you can treat them shitty, and then you're actually morally correct to do so. It's horrible. So I think that's spilling out into businesses. Businesses are if you're creating a business, it's going to showcase who you are, essentially. Your own issues, your own shadow, your own beautiful things are going to pop up when you create business. It's an extension of yourself in a lot of ways.
So in all your collaborations and in everything that you see doing or that you see happening out there right now, what's some great ways that you see people, let's call it recovering from from the last, like let's use the term recovery.
Let's have some, yes. It's so funny because I even go through my own challenges having my own business and getting to navigate how to create sustainable business that brings value to people, that has abundance in cash flow and different things, after myself working in a system for so long. And I've always kind of created business and been working for different people, so that's my go-to. So I've had challenges, but I do feel so grateful right now because I see people waking up to this isn't working. Even like the old measures of success and being busy and hustle culture and corporate success, people are really going, what's happening here? People are spending more time with their kids. They're getting back to community, connecting, belonging. And I think that's what this pressure cooker is about. It's to be like, hey, you can't do it on your own. You can't hustle your own business into success. You've got to collaborate with people. You got to connect. And I think we're seeing a resurgence of that. Lots of people I talk to are feeling called like, oh, I just want to be in community. I just want to get to know my neighbors again. While simultaneously, there's this divisiveness taking place where are your neighbors a threat to you because of their beliefs and their ideologies? So it's really fascinating. So I would say, yeah, that's what I see happening, is people craving in-person connection again, while simultaneously also having social anxiety about it. It's interesting.
I think what you said there, in community.
Yeah.
Versus, for so long it was do in community. When I see people really, I guess, just standing in themselves and in their business and in their lives, and being who they're truly meant to be.
Yeah.
Not necessarily doing what they're truly meant to do, but being who they're truly meant to be. It always excites me, and it makes me actually feel really excited about myself and about my life when I'm around those type of people, because it's infectious.
Yeah, it's authentic.
Mm-hmm.
There's an authenticity, and so it's easier it feels like I don't need to just achieve for my.
Yeah. This, talk talk to me about social media. You have a podcast called Super Scene, and you are interviewing some great people and doing some great things on there. You've had some great names, and you talk about a lot of cool things. But tell us about your perspective of AI and social media right now.
I'm a fan. I'm a fan of social media and AI. I've met some of my best friends on social media during the pandemic because we were sharing things. I do think it's highly addictive as well, and I'm navigating my own challenges around the scroll. And I was actually just talking to my family the other day. I'm like, I think I want to get a flip phone, and I think I want to make, and like have an iPhone, have a computer, but just have a little bit more of a buffer zone between when I'm out in the world and connecting with people. I have a flip phone, so I'm not as distracted. So I think that there's such amazing. I use ChatGPT. I
Yeah.
I in the last few years realized I haven't been officially diagnosed. Not that it matters. I don't know if I'd want to be, but I struggle with dyslexia. And so writing for me, although one of my greatest loves, is also a really big challenge. So it's nice to how I do for anybody listening, how I do it is I'll write out my thoughts and ideas or write something out, and then I'll be like, okay, ChatGPT, give me some other options for this. And so I use ChatGPT as a tool to edit, which is really useful when you struggle with spelling and certain things and sentence structure at times. So I'm a big fan. However, Shauna has this great saying, if you're over consuming, you're under creating. And what I see happening is an overconsumption of social media. And then people saying things like, myself included at times, I just don't know what to post on social. I just feel like I don't want to be on social and da da da. It's like social media is an art form. Creating content is an art form, and using it to communicate with people. It's a fantastic tool, and it can be fun. It's when we're, and again, personally struggled with this, when we're really afraid of what people are going to think, when we're in perfectionism, when we're in procrastination, when we're in overconsumption, then social media can become really challenging. But yeah, of course, social media and AI, some very scary things happening there. Like deep fakes, like the ability to create videos that look so real. Like this is, but I think I'm not as affected because I've developed a skill set on, I know how to look for source material, and also I'm really indifferent to things that don't matter in my life. So I know how to, like, if I saw something really crazy, my initial reaction is like, I think this is not real. And then I try to prove it correct or not. So, and if it doesn't have to do with my life, it doesn't impact my life, I'm good at not feeding into it in a lot of ways. Yeah.
Well, that sounds like a really good life hack.
And don't get me wrong, again, the struggle with the social media. There are times that I go down like content consumption rabbit holes that I don't mean rabbit hole like a conspiracy theory. I mean just like long durations of looking into things where I get riled up and emotionally call it emotional masturbation. My dad came up with it's like you're watching things just to feel something. It doesn't really have an impact in your life. I do that. But that's also, I think, why I'm able to see the other side of this does not really matter in my life. Yeah.
So I've self-diagnosed with myself with having a problem, and one of those times recently was when I was watching something and about to go into the shower and thinking, oh shit, like let's just watch it while I'm in the shower. And and then I'm like, are you crazy? Like you need your phone in the damn shower. Yeah, I've had, anyways, I'm not going to get into my most embarrassing moment, but this
I want to hear your most embarrassing moment.
all right, you want to?
Yeah.
So I was being asked to attend this Zoom, and
Oh no.
a long time ago, before Zoom was.
This episode brought to you by protandemcanada.lifevantage.com. What if you could turn on your body to work like it was supposed to? What if you could have it remember how to handle toxins, stress, and the environment like it used to when you were young? What if it worked for your pets too? What if this is not about supplementing something that is missing, but activating something that has gone dormant? About actually turning on your body to make these things again? Learn how to activate your body now. Check us out, protandemcanada.lifevantage.com.
Like, I hadn't even really used it that much. This was probably, I don't know, like 10, 11 years ago. And so I was like, okay, I got 25 minutes. I need to listen to this Zoom, pretend that I'm on it, pretend that I'm watching whatever I'm doing, and also get showered and get out of the house. So and at that point, I didn't know that when you logged into Zoom, like, it was a setting that your video was automatically on. Okay. Now let's keep in mind, this wasn't like a fully interactive Zoom. It was like a webinar, but
Yeah.
all of the people in the corporate office that I was involved with would have been able to see it. And so it was absolutely, yeah, anyways, I had that baby positioned just right. I was showering, I was shaving, I was doing all kinds of things, and yeah, all on Zoom. And I met,
Were they like,
honey,
Melanie, turn off your camera?
but it was a webinar, right? So it wasn't like yeah. So anywho, I still, even after that, you'd think I would learn my lesson, because I just the other day caught myself going, oh, I want to finish watching this. Maybe I'll just take it into the shower with me.
Yeah.
Like, what am I thinking? Like, where have we come to where that is like what I need to do right now, right? And so, but it is, yeah, that happened, Nicole.
Yeah, that is hilarious. I'm sure I have something like that. Not that extreme. I feel like I've done that, but yeah, technology is so intertwined with our lives now that it is intense. There is not great things about it. And also, again, going back, how amazing that we can build businesses, that we can create our own lives, that I've connected again with some of my best friends on social media. And we've met in person now, and it's like, oh my gosh, yay, I'm not alone, especially during the pandemic after losing friends and losing different people. So I think that it does come back to the user. But again, we can intellectually know things. I know certain things, and the practice in my real life, I get to. I'm teaching a digital detox retreat this weekend. So we're going out as a nice little small group of us. We're going to check in our phones. We are going to have some playlists, so there'll be some music, but other than that, we're going offline. We're going to look at our lives. We're going to sit with what we're being called to create, and just
Where are you doing this?
Golden, BC. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And it'll be launching, by the time this comes out, we'll be launching one in Golden in September again, and another one in Ontario, in Prince Edward County, which is one of the most beautiful places. It's so gorgeous. So a mountain retreat and a lake retreat for people on other sides of the country. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll make certain to link that
Yeah.
information in the show notes and stuff for people, because already it sounds like I want to go.
I know, and it's so funny. This is where I feel called, even though, again, I love the digital social media. It's funny, I create content and I coach people on social media content creation while simultaneously also creating these retreats where we unplug and we connect with each other, we connect with God, we connect with the vision for our lives and what we're here to create. And I think that makes sense to me. Of course, content has a beautiful place, it's story. But it's really important that we remove the noise at times. And content can be noise for sure. Especially in the shower.
So tell me what your favorite, and I know it's probably hard to just pick just one, but what was your favorite guest on your podcast? Or maybe this relates to favorite topic, I don't know, but maybe I'll tell you what, I'll give you two.
I know, I was gonna say I want two. Because I want like favorite popular one, and then I want one of my favorites just in general. I interviewed Robert Malone, Dr. Robert Malone.
Yeah.
And he was one of the first guests that I interviewed on podcast in July 2021. And
Okay.
so I saw him on the Dark Horse podcast and called him, and he picked up the phone. I was so shocked. I was like, hello. He's like, hi, this is like Robert Malone. I was like, oh, somebody actually picked up a phone. I thought I was going to leave a message. I thought I was going to be busy. Like, I was surprised. That's one thing I was surprised I got through to him so easily. I want to just say, anybody listening to this, including yourself, who wants to create a podcast or do interviews, this idea that it's going to be so hard to get guests, it's not true. Sometimes, yeah, sometimes it's a struggle, but you'd be surprised how many people really do want to talk to you and how easy it can be to get to certain people. So I'll just say that. Don't be discouraged at the idea that you can't interview somebody, because you'd be surprised. So I interviewed him. That podcast was long. He likes to talk and explain things in great detail. However, I touched base with him 6 months later. And sorry, that was a good podcast. Like, it was important to lay out the research findings at that time. But 6 months later, he had just been on the Joe Rogan podcast, and I asked him to do a follow-up. And I was able to really get into more of his emotional story, struggling with being called controlled opposition, struggling with suicidal thoughts, struggling with realizing his whole career was based on fraudulent data in the vaccine world. So that interview was really special for me because I just felt like it was deep. It just had some more depth and story that he hadn't showcased totally. So I loved that. I was able to talk about hard topics with him, like being called controlled opposition. And he went there. So that was one that I really loved. And then I'm funny. I'm thinking of a friend, Natalie St. Hilaire. I can't even fully remember what we talked about, but I'm having her on again in a few weeks on an Instagram Live. And she's just so intelligent and smart. And we were talking about identity and psychological things. So yeah, I enjoyed that one. And as a little side note too, my podcast has brought so many opportunities into my life. People I've interviewed, I've created projects with. So again, met some of my best friends from asking them to be on my podcast. Joe Martino, Meg Garland, two people that I talk to regularly and adore. I started by having them on my podcast.
And when did you start it?
Well, I kind of started in July 2021, and then I interviewed Robert Malone and I think Joe Martino and one other person. And then Joe Martino asked me to come work for him. So I was able to go do independent journalism because this is actually a really funny story. I was hired and fired on the same day. So I interviewed Joe. He's had a very successful media career, alternative media company he created called Collective Evolution. And they were majorly censored and dealt with a lot of crazy things happening to their content. So I interviewed him about that. I thought it was really fascinating. But then we built a friendship and started chatting, and he knew I was speaking out now while working at the college. And I started writing articles for him and the company. And then I kind of said he's like, I kind of want you to just come work full time. And I said, I kind of want to come work for you full time, but I need to do this properly. I need to give like a month's notice because I'm running this whole student newspaper. Like, I need to give some notice. He's like, totally. The next morning, I swear it was the next morning, the student newspaper fired me and had to give me a settlement because they fired me without cause. Right. Oh, no. It was right after him and I had the conversation. He interviewed me. I got off the Zoom. The student newspaper called and fired me. It was literally 30 minutes. I don't know how I forgot that. And I called him back. I was like, I guess I can start now.
Like, you couldn't ask for like more divinely orchestrated.
Yeah, and he was like, are you joking? I'm like, no. And the beauty of it was because I had this job already lined up, I didn't have to sign the NDA for more money because I had a job. So they offered me the proper whatever month settlement or 6 weeks. And then they offered me more if I would sign a non-disclosure and not talk about what took place. And I was able to say, no, thank you. I'm not signing that.
Good for you, Nicole.
And it would have been harder to say no to that had I not had a job obviously lined up 30 minutes before I got fired. And I was about to quit. And if they're listening to this, like, I was about to quit, they wouldn't have to give me anything. Right? So, yeah.
How amazing is that?
It was beautiful. Yeah.
You basically got paid to transition.
I know. It's so nice. And then, as fate would have it, that company, like independent media, I think lots of people are having challenges of keeping things going. So it downsized. And about a year later, I was let go. But I'm so grateful again for that transition period. I didn't have to worry at all. And I got to have some really amazing experiences. So, and write some articles and interview some people. So it was great.
Have you written any books?
No, but I want to. I've had this like kind of book on my heart for a while, but really a part of it is to just do it. Just do the thing, right? Because I've written enough articles to equip, what is the word?
That's equivalent.
That's equivalent to a book. So the idea of writing a book, that doesn't scare me. However, honing down the story arc, and what's taking place. What I've landed on is it's going to be a book around relationships and communication and media. Yeah.
Okay. I knew that a book was in your heart when you told me some of the people that inspired you, and that when you said one of them was J.K. Rowling. Like, oh, she's got a book in there.
It's so funny. J.K. Rowling, that came up because I was asking my sister and some other people, like, who would you want to see speak? And my sister's like, I don't know. Like, and then she messaged me being like, J.K. Rowling. And I love J.K. Rowling's story around being a single mom and kind of that pressure cooker of like, it's create or die. Like,
Yeah.
put your heart out and see. And then, of course, she's abundantly wealthy now. And then the
But
plot
how many times, like, she put it out there? Like, I can't remember how many times she put it out there, but it was like,
rejected a lot.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love JK. I love people who kind of piss off, quote unquote, both sides. So even though I am Christian and believe in God, I know that obviously a book about wizards pisses off some conservative religious people. I love that she's speaking out against trans women in female spaces. So I like people who there's almost like a level of trust because they're not pandering. They're not pandering. Because if they were pandering, they wouldn't be pissing off all types of people.
Right?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. But I don't know. I've also had a lot of thoughts around different movies and documentaries, and I'm sure if people are listening to this and they're creatives, you have a million ideas that take place. So then how do you really commit to one and follow through and complete it? And I think that is the struggle of the war of art, where there's resistance and sometimes it can feel good to just go to the next idea and do that or think of something else. So yes, there's about a million shows and books and different things that have gone through my mind, and we'll see what gets completed first.
All right. So last question
Yeah.
on this. Well, who knows? But if you were to create any documentary right now, what topic would you pick, or who would you do it on?
Okay, what would I do it on? I don't know why this documentary idea is popping up in my head because there are other things that I'm interested in, but me and a friend of mine who's a documentary filmmaker, Kimberly, we thought it'd be so funny to do a documentary on raw milk and how people get greater fines for having raw milk than drugs. So that I think would be a fun short documentary that would be I don't even know how short it would need to be. I don't know enough about it, but that's popped into my head. Yeah. I have this whole like scene of in like the beginning of drug movies how there's like black and it's like they start naming the charges of things. And so it's like this dark, gritty drug type of film and then it just like stops and it's a pasture with a cow and you just hear moo. And then you realize that all these charges were for people who were selling or trading raw milk. That's the thought I'm having.
Well, that sounds pretty fun. The reality is, the scary part about that is it's not even a spoof.
It's
right. It's reality. It's reality. It's like,
and,
yeah,
and I think that type of documentary would reveal, problems with the farming industry, problems with our health industry. Like it would reveal a lot of greater topics, but it's niche down to the story of raw milk.
Yeah.
Yeah. My friend Kimberly, if she hears this, she's gonna be like, Nicole, now we gotta do it. Yeah. Now we gotta do it.
You just laid it out there. So
Yeah.
tell me, is there anything else that you want to share with people?
So anything else I want to share? I just want to encourage people to not be afraid of each other, to get curious about collaborating together, get curious about communicating and learning the art of communication. Just because you feel inside like, oh, me and this person don't get along, doesn't make it true. It just might be a great opportunity to practice communication skills. And yeah, get curious about how we can be more playful with each other, more creative, create a sense of belonging with each other before needing to fit into any kind of box. So, yeah, we're not each other's enemies. There's, the need to be right, and the idea that we're each other's enemies is more of the issue than the person that's next to you.
Couldn't agree more. I think that any one of us, even if we think of people that we think are our enemies or think have so far polar viewpoints, would probably change our mind if we actually sat down and listened to what kind of struggles they were going through.
Yeah, this is what I'll say too. I just want to say this second last thing is the majority of people that I've seen and talked to who have a different view than me. I'm going to take a really extreme example here just to lay it out. People who believe that kids should have access to hormone treatment, transgender hormone treatment, or surgeries, they really believe that this is the best chance this kid has to not commit suicide, to not self-harm, to live. And on the other side, myself and other people are saying, well, actually, the data is showing that people's chances of increased suicide and mental illness increase when these things are taking place. And these actions are damaging to the physical body and mental wellness of a child. So what we're dealing with isn't some people wanting to kill children and some people not wanting to. It's people who really care and want people to be thriving and not suffering and alive, and different ideas of what actions lead to that. It's the same in the pandemic. The people wanting to get their others vaccinated really believe that if you don't, grandma will die. The people like myself actually believe those vaccinations sped up grandma dying, that it did worse harm to people than good. So I think that's important for people to remember. It can be really easy to see someone as a threat. It's like somebody's deceived, somebody's ignorant. That is a truth, because both can't be real. But both sides want what's best for people. They just don't always know what's best for people. And that's why it's so important for people to be able to choose.
I'm reminded of a quote by Andy Andrews where he said, oh, it is true, but is it the truth? And the just every one of us have such a unique perspective on what is true or what is the truth for us. And it all comes down generally to our perspective. So thank you so much, Nicole. I have greatly enjoyed this interview, and I appreciate how you showed up just authentic and real, and maybe giving us a little bit of a different perspective on industries that we may have thought we had ideas about. And I just really value your life experience in these different things and how you're taking that now and just, becoming a collaborator queen, because I just think that's such an important model for people doing business and life. Like, if you can collaborate with somebody, you're both winning, and that's what it's all about. So thank you.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for having the courage to do a podcast, because so many people think about it and then they don't do it. So bravo for stepping up and actually doing the creative act. Yeah.
Thanks, Nicole.